Hey folks, welcome. Here we discuss real stories by real people. Today we have the story of a man who finds out his girlfriend is married to his old high school classmate. Let's see how it goes. Story 1. I started dating this girl recently, and I'm starting to realize I might have made a big mistake. We met at a dive bar I used to frequent, stopped going there when I found better places to drink, but I went there again for old time's sake. She was another regular patron, and tonight she was drunk off her ass and aggressively flirting with all the men there. Naturally, I took pity on her and took her back to my place. Unfortunately, she passed out before we could do anything fun. The next morning, I woke up with a wicked hangover and saw her still blacked out on my couch, even sicker than I was. Eventually, she came and we sobered up and got to know each other better over a cup of coffee. She turned out to be a nice woman, much more refined than she appeared to be when she was under the influence. We took a liking to each other and started going out together. Things were going great, seemed perfect even. However, when we were at a restaurant, I noticed something that had me rethinking the relationship I was getting into. We were eating at a fancy steakhouse, the kind of place that you need to book reservations for a month in advance. When the waiter came, she ordered a bottle of wine for the table. My date is an older woman. Don't know her exact age because it's rude to ask, but if I had to guess, she's probably in her 30s. And as someone who used to work as a server, I know that when you ask an older woman for ID, you usually get a better tip because it makes them feel young. This waiter must have known the same trick because he carded her, and when she reached into her purse to grab her driver's license, a diamond ring fell out. It only slipped for a split second, but it was long enough for me to recognize what it was. It's an unusual thing for a supposedly single woman to have. So when she gave her ID to the waiter, I read the last name, and it sounded familiar. The rest of our evening was pleasant, but I couldn't get what I saw out of my head, so I decided to look her up on Facebook. After a little bit of scrolling, I found her profile with her relationship status listed as married. I looked through her photos as well, and in nearly every single one of them she was posing with another man, her husband. He looked familiar. So I clicked on his profile too and realized where I knew him from. We went to high school together. He was a senior when I was a sophomore, but we were both on the basketball team. I knew that I had to do the right thing, so I sent him a friend request, and when he accepted it, I'll message him and arrange a meetup. I'm gonna have to tell him about his wife and me. I have to be honest and face him man to man. Whenever it happens, I'll tell you how our meeting plays out. Update. It took some time for him to accept my friend request, but eventually he did, and we started messaging each other right away. He remembered who I was, and we recollected memories of shooting hoops, running until our lungs gave out, and some of the drama that in hindsight was just silly bullshit. Anyways, we're both fans of our city's local team, so we got tickets to their next home game. It was a good match, the kind of game where neither team could keep their lead for long. But our team had the edge, and when the buzzer rang, we came out on top. The entire stadium was cheering, and we were caught up in the crowd's electrifying energy. I was having a blast, and was dreading having to come clean to my old friend, but that's what I went there to do. On the drive home, I asked him about his wife, and he said things were good, and things were always the same between them. Basically meaning that he didn't want to talk about it. It was my turn to talk, and I told him about the girl I started seeing, how we met, some of the things we were doing together, and then I told him about the ring falling out of her purse, that the woman I was talking about was his wife. I was expecting him to get mad and try to start a fight, but whatever anger he felt was not directed towards me. In fact, he seemed to understand that I had no idea she was taken, and actually thanked me for telling him. However, I started seeing gears turn inside his head and steam billow out his ears. As he thought about the situation, his temper started to boil, and he used that to brew up a plan. After a minute or so of silence and intense silence, he turned to me and said he had an idea. He wanted to get back at his wife for trying to date another man, and he wanted me to help him. I thought it sounded like a great idea, so I agreed to help him with his revenge plot. I'll continue when we follow through on the plan. Last update. We went ahead and followed the plan to confront her. Basically, what he had in mind was a bait and switch, where I act as the bait and switch out with him. I'll go on another date with his wife and take her home. When we get there, I'll say I have something special in mind, put a blindfold on her, and walk her to my room where her husband will be waiting. Sounded like a decent enough plan. For the location, I suggested the bar where I met his wife for the first time. But he didn't like that idea very much, so I settled on another dinner date. It was a nice Italian place that none of us had been to before, and throughout the date there was a palpable sense of tension. Tense because I had an ulterior motive, but also because things between us have slowly been heating up. Ever since I found out she was married, I couldn't see her that way anymore. But for her, the flame was just lit and ready to burn. She had this air of excitement about her. Meanwhile, I was trying to fight my own discomfort and feed into her energy. After a good meal and a few drinks, we were ready to head back to my place. So I told her that there was something good waiting for her at home that I wanted to be a surprise, and gave her the blindfold, and she enthusiastically put it on. Right after it was on, I texted my friend the signal to drive over to my place. When we got home, I saw his car was already parked outside. And when I got out with his wife, he quietly followed us. I led her through the door, across the hall to my room, sat her down on my bed, and left. I was already out of the room by that point, but when her husband pulled off the blindfold, I can only imagine the look of complete and total shock she had on her face. I'll spare you the details of their argument, but it was some of the loudest yelling I've ever heard. After about an hour or so of the couple fighting and multiple complaints from my neighbors, they stormed out of the room together, still shouting at each other, got into their car and left, all without missing a beat of their arguments. I got a call from him the next day telling me that they're filing for divorce, and he wanted to thank me again for being straight with him and giving him the opportunity to confront his wife like that. I admit it was a thrill to set it in motion. Needless to say, I'm not seeing her anymore either. There's no way she would want to rebound to me, and I don't think I want to keep seeing her either. Thank you guys for following this story and pushing me in the right direction. I'm glad your friend's divorcing his wife, OP. I'm also glad you dodged a bullet with her, because if you hadn't seen her wedding ring that day, you wouldn't have had any idea that she was married. She seems like someone who can't be in a closed relationship like marriage, so thank you for helping her husband realize that. He deserves way better, and I hope he finds it. She might contact you again, and I'll advise you to ignore her. Someone who cheated on their partner will most likely cheat on you too, so unless you don't hate that idea, don't take her back. Story 2. I'm a 31-year-old male who's been married for 8 years, and I've known my wife, 30 years old, for 10. We met when we were in college and have been inseparable since then. We also have a 4-year-old daughter together. I trusted and loved my wife beyond words can describe. My whole life was built around her. The level of trust went to the extent that all my assets were in her name, and all financial matters were handled by her. Even my salary was deposited into a joint account managed by her. She helped me through a lot in life emotionally, as I suffered from severe clinical depression from an early age. While I progressed in my career at a remarkable pace, she was the glue that held all of it together by being a constant source of strength and unending compassion. My love and trust for her grew exponentially with every passing day as I saw how much she cared about me and stood by me at every step. Then out of the blue 2 weeks ago, I came across text messages that she's been exchanging with her boss, a married dude in his 50s. When I confronted her about this, she confessed that she was having an affair with him. She initially only talked about emotional attachment, but when I pressed further, she confessed that they had indulged in various sexual acts, including intercourse. This has left me beyond devastated. Words can't begin to describe the amount of hurt and betrayal I feel. It seems like I'm gasping for air, but I can't breathe. She claims that she generalized our minor fights into major ones in her mind and felt overwhelmed. This led her to stay at work more and more, and that's when this affair started. According to her, this has been going on for 6 months. She never communicated her insecurities or doubts with me, even when I've asked specifically and repeatedly in the past. She is remorseful and has cried her eyes out and implored for me to stay. I want this to work, as we had a wonderful life together and a beautiful daughter. But whenever I think about it, the brutal and soul-crushing images of her boss and her going at it flood my mind. I feel repulsed, disgraced, and defeated. Question: can anyone offer any guidance, any help? Someone who's been in this situation or otherwise. Should I leave her or... I don't really care if she takes the money. I earn in the 150K region, and I'm sure I will do fine from the monetary perspective, provided I don't unravel psychologically. Whether you stay with her or leave her is entirely up to you. But do you think you'll ever really be able to trust her again? 6 months is a long time in my own opinion. She's been actively cheating on you for a significant amount of time. The fact is, she chose, instead of working on relationship problems with you, to begin an affair with another man. If you hit another rough patch, is she just going to fall into the arms of another man again? I'm sorry this happened to you. I think the healthiest thing psychologically for you would be to leave her. But you need to make that decision yourself for your reasons, and I think before you do that, you have to get well and see that you can live a good life without her. Go for personal therapy first and try to get well. Then you can make a decision. Good luck, OP. Now for some comments. It's all up to you personally, man. Some people can't leave and some can. If the images keep popping up, you probably need to leave for a while. Then see if you still want to go back after taking a long break. The fact is, it's been happening for 6 months. That's 6 months of her effing some guy without telling you until you found out yourself. Get away ASAP. Don't go back and have sex. Nothing. Break off contact until you're stable and then think whether or not you want to continue the relationship. 6 months is a long time to go behind someone's back. It wasn't even a one-night stand, which I personally wouldn't forgive. You will never trust her again. Every single late night at work will leave you wondering if she is bent over the desk getting boned by her boss, even if she changes jobs. You'll start to notice if she hides her phone, and every minuscule thing she does could be interrupted as cheating. She claims that she generalized our minor fights into major ones in her mind and felt overwhelmed. This led her to stay at work more and more, and that's when this affair started. She's trying to lay part of the blame on you. She more than cheated, she had a long-term affair. Protect finances and hire a lawyer. This affair's been happening for 6 months. This isn't a one-time mistake or an oops. This is clear and conscious deception on her part. She had plenty of time to end things or confess to you, but she didn't. The end result being she put both your physical and mental health in jeopardy so she could F her boss. She's only sorry she got caught. See point 1 as evidence. So what would have happened if you never caught her? It would have kept going on. What if she got pregnant at that time? Would she have confessed, or would she let you raise a kid thinking it's yours? The fact that she isn't taking any responsibility and is essentially blaming you for the little fights shows she doesn't care two shits about you. Seriously, man, just dump her and move on. Call a plenty of divorce lawyers ASAP and protect yourself legally. Or you can roll over and take it and let your wife keep effing her boss and whoever else she hasn't told you about.